said to her, "You feeling suicidal now?" I don't know why I'd asked her that night. Less than normal. I'm okay. Yeah, she was telling me. It was Thursday before the Tuesday. But you have it, if you do it, I'm gone 2 days later. And I meant it. I really, really meant it.
Wow. All right, everybody. Welcome to episode number 32, I believe we're at. I'm losing track, which is, of course, a good thing.
At this point, we don't know when we're going to release it. So it's
that too.
welcome to episode 30-something.
Exactly. But we have a very, very special guest here with us. But before we get to the guest, I just want to ask Zach, first of all, how are you doing?
Doing good. Did a little physical therapy this morning. I've got tape running down my back. That's
Okay.
supposed to be doing something. I don't know what.
Okay. That's
But
good.
we're feeling good.
Awesome.
How
All
are
right,
you?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you, Zach. Thank
I
you
like
for
your
asking.
shirt.
Thank you. Okay, so we have two very special guests, I should say. We have Avrami Gurary.
Remy.
With an E.
Avrami with an E. So
There you
I
go.
was going to ask you that. Is it Avrami or Avrami? So we have
Avrami.
Chabad. Got it.
Also, easily the cooler spelling of that name.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have Avrami Gurary and we have Adina Nenner with us.
Yes.
So this pod is extremely, extremely important to me, as everyone here knows. I have been a very big advocate and I'm a very big advocate for mental health stuff. I think we're in a generation right now that is severely afflicted by mental health, significantly more, it seems, than any other generation in recent history. So given that is, where we stand in today's, day and age, this podcast is very important to me and very near and dear. So I wanted to just start off by, obviously, Avrami, you have a daughter, Olav Shalom Yocheved, right?
That's correct.
I wanted to start off, by getting in your words, a quick synopsis of what Yocheved was like, and just get an understanding of what she was like as a kid, really, primarily.
Thank you for having me, number one.
You're welcome.
I appreciate being here.
Thank you for being here.
Yocheved was the perfect kid. She was well behaved. She was kind. She was gentle. She did well in school. She was a great sister, a great daughter. But she had a disease, which only, reared its ugly head, I'd say, towards the end of elementary school and throughout her high school years. Other than that, she was an amazing friend. I'm really, really excited that Adina is here because Adina was her very closest friend in high school. And she can tell you more about that. But she was just a wonderful person. And, I don't think you're going to find anyone in the world who knew her that will have anything negative to say about her. She's just a beautiful person. And as we'll perhaps talk about, sometimes those kinds of people that are so affected by the shtusim, that go on in everyday lives, they just can't handle that which is thrown at them. And not necessarily do they take their lives out of trauma-induced incidents, but just because they just can't, resolve the differences between who they represent and who they are in the world we live in.
Got
And they can't, what's the word? Calibrate it. That's a word.
Would you say that there's like a little aspect of like very sensitive people who are so warm and caring when they meet like like the world, which is filled, like, is it a sensitivity thing where the world, like the bad parts of living affect them more because of their sensitivity,
Mhm.
their grace?
So before we get deep into this conversation, besides Adina being Yochev's close friend, she's also a PhD grad student in psychology.
Really?
So she's
Sure
going
I
to check
am.
us on all the details all the things we're going to be saying.
I'm still a student. I don't think I could check
You know
yet.
more than we do.
Right.
That might be true.
But my layman's answer to that is that in her case, it didn't bother her that much. When people, she just, found the good in people and she tried to be good to others. But yeah, a lot of sensitive people struggle. Those that are sensitive to a bad word that they don't have the resilience to knock it off and to, push it away. Is it a cause for mental health problems or directly suicide? I don't know.
I want to get to Adina in 1 second. I just want to expound on what Zach was saying because you literally took the words out of my mouth. I think sometimes when people are like just super sensitive, neshamas and souls, the world is not a sensitive, kind place. It's just not.
Not
I think
always.
that a lot of times it's not. I would, it's a tough world out there. And I think that, like Zach is saying, a lot of times when people are very sensitive, very caring, and, like I said, the world's a tough place. And a lot of times it just affects them more. So it's funny. I was literally thinking what you were saying. Adina, can you, when did you first meet Yocheved?
I met Yocheved in 2010, first year of high school, 9th grade.
First year of high school. Got
Which
it.
high school is this?
Shalhevet, which is no longer in existence.
What
Unfortunately.
type of high school was that?
Modern Orthodox all girls high school in 5 minutes away, Valley Street.
Oh, okay.
Where do you grow up?
I grew up in West Hempstead.
You grew up in West Hempstead. Very, very cool. So when you met Yocheved, what was your initial observation of her? Did she strike you as just any regular girl? Was she at this time already being affected?
Can I just interject and say, why didn't you ask the obvious question?
Which is?
We live in Crown Heights. We're a Chabad family.
Yeah, that was.
How did Yocheved land up in the 5th?
That's the question. Okay, please go ahead and share.
Right? Isn't that the, a mukta mocha batayah, right? So I guess we can talk about that and talk about this. No, but Yocheved went to, sorry for interrupting, Adina.
Please.
Yocheved went to a Chabad school in Crown Heights, a very strict Chabad school in Crown Heights. And things started unraveling in 7th or 8th grade. And we realized that a Chabad high school is not in her future. And we started looking for schools. And we wanted, my wife and I, we wanted a school with that is rigorous academically, that is not demanding religiously as demanding as the school she came from, but at the same time is not a school that's going to be anti-Chabad, right? So that was very important to us. So when we interviewed Rabbi Friedman and Mrs. Eisenman, that was part of the discussion. They proved themselves that was indeed the case. They were not, they had the Hoshita, they're from the, what the rabbi's name, but they have their own hashkafa and so on. And they were very, very supportive. And that's how she landed up at Shalhevet. And in fact, they told us later when my wife and I walked into Shalhevet for the initial interview, they thought we were nuts. Like, what's this family from Crown Heights? Who are they?
Right.
And why do they want to be part of our school? But she landed up in that school. Go ahead, Adina.
So I met her when she ended up in that school, and she was, I would say, really smart, quiet, and sweet. That was my initial impression of her. I think that as I got to know her throughout high school, yes, she was sweet, and I agree. No one's ever going to say something bad about her, but as her friend, she was super snarky. She was, we could really get into it about different topics, about different classes, people in our grade. Everyone is great, but definitely people in our grade. And she, I think that I only knew her once she was sick. Like I only knew her starting in 9th grade. She had already developed an eating disorder by then. And so when Remy and Dini talk about how she was super carefree and everyone always, she would do anything, I didn't know her like that at all. I knew her as someone who would completely rip up a paper if there was a single typo on it, or if her handwriting wasn't perfect, she, would not let me use it for notes. Or if she ever missed a day of class, I had to make sure that my notes were perfect so that I can send them to her. That's kind of how I knew Yocheved. And it's just always interesting to hear about how she was before she had an eating disorder, because I never knew that person.
Wow. Do you think that that personality of like the intensity and the high level of perfectionism is like similar, like goes hand in hand with an eating disorder in any way, or is that just totally not connected?
What do you think, Adina?
I mean, as someone who worked on an eating disorder unit last year, I do have a little bit more of a psychological and medical perspective on eating disorders. And it is a lot of times the way that eating disorders start is people are looking for a sense of control, and they find it within food. And unfortunately, it's really hard once you are so malnourished, your brain stops working, right? Like, we've all been hangry before, so you kind of just devolve. And that is likely what happened with Yocheved. I didn't know her as her therapist or as her doctor, so I can't speak definitively, but I just know that that's the way eating disorders work. And it's the sense of control that then permeates every other aspect of your life.
And looking for control.
Yeah.
Interesting. Was she open with you about her eating disorder?
I didn't know about it until senior year. She didn't tell me about it until it was known, until she was already in treatment in senior year of high school.
Okay.
Remy, when did you find out that she had an eating disorder?
So let's talk about that because it's very interesting. So when did I find out? We found out in elementary school, towards the end of elementary school. But I can tell you that what I know about it today and what I knew about it then is completely different. How can anybody expect to understand what an eating disorder is? Any normal person who doesn't know anything about eating disorders, they think, person thinks they don't look good, they're too fat. I'm going to go and starve. Or in her case, anorexia. When I say eating disorders, I'm talking about anorexia. I don't think it was the case in her case. And okay, so she went to a doctor. There's a clinic, Dr. Cohen, and somewhere here in Long Island, where she got seen by a doctor for eating disorders. And I don't really know what they did there. Came back. It was managed. It wasn't managed. It was a battle for years and years and years. And your initial question was, just remind me because I want to.
I was asking if you ever.
Oh, how do we
When
know?
you knew.
When you found out. Yes,
Yeah.
that's what
When
I
we
asked.
truly know or understand, because we knew from very early on, I don't think we knew what to do about it, and that's really anything can be achieved by this discussion is to make how to make caregivers or loved ones, parents, aware of the signs and then what to do about it, and what it is and what
can
it
you
is
speak
not.
on that?
What's that?
Can you speak on those signs?
Can I speak on those signs? I can only speak on those signs as it pertains to my particular case. I think every case would be different, right?
Yeah.
The signs can be different. In our case, the obvious thing was that she would not eat a lot. She was obviously underweight. A common practice with eating disorder patients, and again, you can correct me, is food hoarding.
I don't know what that means.
Food hoarding means I would go to her room and she would nibble at a piece of cake, let's say, or a cookie, and then put it into a tissue, and then put it in her closet, and would sit there for months sometimes. Like this, why I still didn't understand. There's a lot to this day I don't understand. And what really got things going eventually, like in a real way, was when another friend of Yocheved said to Yocheved, I think based on eating disorder, right? If you don't, she went to her and said, if you don't tell the school psychologist, I will. Just goes to their friend as well. And Yocheved was forced to tell the school psychologist. One thing led to another, and she ended up, my wife told me, well, taking Yocheved, we're going back to see Dr. Cohen, LIJ, I think. And that's what happened that day. This is in senior year. All right?
Yeah.
This is in senior year. And then I got a call, and this is again under the umbrella of things that I don't understand or didn't understand.
Right.
Which is why it's so difficult to navigate, and for all Frum families and Jewish families, any family to navigate this kind of scenario. As my wife Dini calls me up and says, well, we're at the doctor and we're not coming home. I said, why not? I mean, it's a doctor's appointment. I'm sure the doctor spoke to her and, either giving her medicine for depression or giving her guidance on how to maintain her weight, or what's the problem? We're going to hospital. Why is she being admitted? Yocheved is self-harming. What's self-harming? The first time in my life I'd ever heard that term. Did you know about it in senior school? In senior year of high school?
No,
The thing about self-harm?
I had no idea about self-harming. I didn't know
You didn't
she
know
was
about the
self-harming.
concept.
I didn't know about the concept for sure. So it turned out that Yocheved had been cutting herself with a razor blade. Now, there are various forms of self-harm. That's the form that she chose. And as a result, she had multiple scars on her body, look, hundreds probably, of these scars. And there was enough for them to say, you got to go to hospital. This is obviously very serious, and she needs to be admitted and treated for whatever she's been treated for. There's obviously something else going on over there. I said, okay, I'm in the car, I'm on my way. Now, I will say, we can have a whole discussion about HIPAA, which one day, if it's my dream to reform the HIPAA laws in this country. I will say that, and even though she was underage, the doctor knew about the self-harm before we did and didn't tell us. So,
When was this? When she was in 7th and 8th grade already?
yeah, even earlier, there were doctors that knew about her self-harm
Didn't tell you.
Didn't tell us.
Because of HIPAA.
Because I don't know what. Because HIPAA would have allowed them to tell us
Right.
she was underage. So I don't know what the reason is to this day.
Interesting.
But I think doctors today are super, super sensitive about doing or saying the wrong thing for fear of losing their license.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll go לפנים משורת הדין, to make sure that, that nothing is done in an incorrect way.
And that could cause harm.
I think it's very often.
Negligence.
Malpractice.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
Yeah,
they
well,
don't want to be sued.
Yeah, well, yeah, then exactly. So the basic laws of HIPAA are that, we talk about this now, but basic laws, and you can correct me again, is that you're not allowed, if you have a patient, you can't talk about that patient to anyone else unless they sign a release,
Right.
or if they are demonstrating that they'll be a harm to themselves or to others.
So she was demonstrating that she was harmed to herself.
Right. So let's put that aside for a second.
And she was underage.
But let's put that aside. However, if a patient comes along, I believe, a patient comes along and demonstrates behavior that if the doctor could go to the parent and in a way that would not muddy the waters insofar as the doctor relationship with the therapist, with the patient, would not be muddied, to say, you know what, guys, Yocheved has this thing, and this is what you should be doing. I'm advising you to either study up on it, go for therapy yourselves, but none of that is possible because of HIPAA, which I think is a mistake. And I've spoken to many therapists about this, and they agree with me, but those are the current laws in the United States. So at any rate, so she was self-harming, and she kept it a complete secret. And she kept a complete secret by covering up. It wasn't necessarily this frummy girl that wanted to cover up. I'll tell you about that more later. But she did cover up. She had long sleeves. I remember even in the ambulance, in well, not that ambulance. So she was in hospital, then she came home. And then she was part of a outpatient facility called Renfrew.
Renfrew?
Renfrew.
Renfrew, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Renfrew.
They have several locations. And it's an eating disorder clinic. So she would go there in her senior year, in senior year of high school. She would go there on an outpatient basis. And then one day we get a call from the place. We've called the cops. And the reason we called the cops is because Yocheved has said that she's suicidal. And I'm like, well, why don't you call the parents first? All the protocols will call the cops. And I was very, very, very upset about that. It sounds logical. Thank God President Obama was having trouble navigating the city that day. So which meant that it took a long time for the ambulance to get to Renfrew, Manhattan. I got there first. And I walk in and I'm saying, well, and there's two cops standing at Yocheved's door. And I said, well, where's your ambulance that you called, Well, they're not here yet. And I said, what about Hatzalah? And let's call Hatzalah. What's Hatzalah? So I pull it up on Wikipedia. Here's Hatzalah. And with my other hand, I call Hatzalah, who were there in 2 minutes.
Unbelievable. That's
Why-
Hatzalah.
Yeah, that's all 101. Why the cops? They call the cops every time. I'm confused about
So
that.
it's, I mean,
Call 911.
they called 911.
Okay,
cops
yeah,
have
that-
Right.
come.
I mean,
Okay.
a cops come, but the ambulance
No,
comes also.
I mean,
Now
the
there's a
issue
new
that
one.
I had was I thought, Renfrew, it should be a place where there's a psychiatrist on location. Someone's suicidal. Okay, let's try to manage the situation. Let's not try to exacerbate it. Call the parents in. Let's discuss it. Let's discuss next moves. Their go-to thing, calling the cops. I'm not sure it's so useful.
I feel like if someone is in a lot of distress, the appearance of cops in the room is not going to minimize their distress.
Exactly right. Thank you. Exactly right. Escalation, not de-escalation.
It's escalated.
So the guys came. Why did I mention that particular point? Because they came and they said, okay, we're going to take it to hospital. They released the Renfrew. It's an ambulance service. They had no choice but to say, okay, you signing off on it. You're taking her. So they took her. And I remember in the ambulance, they wanted to give her fluids and wanted to inject, fluids. And she was so shameful or maybe worried that we would see her scars. And I said, I knew she had scars. I said, Mommy and I were sitting in front. You go back with the guy. He's going to do the thing, and that's it, So he did. And obviously he was very good about it, very diplomatic about it, and making sure that she did not understand that we understood that she had these scars. And the ambulance took her to some hospital in also Long Island. And then we sat there for a long time waiting. And eventually Yocheved must have calmed down and said, this is bullshit. Let's just go home,
Yeah.
So we got cleared by the nurse and we did go home. When did she come out?
Publicly or to me?
Publicly.
Oh, maybe 2019.
So 2019 is her
Came out too as self-harmer.
as someone who's suffering from mental illness.
Oh,
On Instagram. She started posting on Instagram. I want to say after her first attempt.
After first.
I want to say after her first suicide attempt, she started then publicly posting on Instagram on her story. She would, there was this thing called Telenym. I don't know if you know what it is.
Telenym?
Yeah, it's this website where you can anonymously post a question and then someone can answer that question.
Okay, sure.
Whatever. So she started doing that. She started answering all these questions about mental health, about her experience. She started advocating for different mental health topics. And she really opened up about her experience.
What was she like in person as a friend? Was she totally like socially normal? Like, would you be able to pick up on anything of any of the mental health issues?
She was totally normal. She, like, you wouldn't know if you just met her in person that there was anything going on beneath the surface.
Right.
Wow. Was she like a particularly smart person?
Yeah.
Particularly smart kid?
Yeah, she was the valedictorian of our high school class.
Really?
Yeah, she had 4.0 GPA in college. I'm in a PhD program right now. She was the one who was editing all of my stuff to apply. She was the one
wow.
editing my college papers.
She
Yeah.
was managing to do all this while in obviously tremendous emotional mental pain.
Well, she did take time off after high school. She went to go to nursing school right away, and she took a year off after having been accepted at Macaulay. And then even after Macaulay, she took a year off to apply for grad school. But she did have time on her hands here and there.
Got it. So you mentioned that she already in ninth grade for high school, she went to a different, you didn't send her to a typical Chabad school.
And not
You didn't feel that was best for her. I feel like a lot of times, sometimes religious trauma and things of that nature, where either it could come from a school, friends, home, whatever that is, but that could contribute a lot to low self-esteem, unhappiness, depression, and things of that nature. Do you feel that that was a catalyst in this case, potentially?
So thank you very much for bringing that up. I appreciate it. Because I just heard a saying the other day that your parents screw up the first part of your life, and then your kids screw up the next part of your life. All right. So on the one hand, I'm sure that, that Yocheved had told Adina and others, what terrible parents we were and all the things we did and so on. And much of it is true, and some of it is not true. And some of it is just due to the fact that we were disciplining, whatever the case might be. But when it comes to religious trauma, and I think that that Adina can attest to this, it did not apply in our case at all. That was, in fact, the one thing that I avoided at all costs. And when you had called me last week, and I told you, your name came up, and I said, hey, I spoke to this guy before. And then you reminded me that we had spoken after a speech you had given, and I had taken some issue with things you were saying. And then you said to me, we agreed in the end, and I don't remember what we even argued about. But then I went, in preparation for this, I went back and I listened to your whole presentation again. Your presentation was about just that. You called this Magefa of religious expectations and so on.
Well, in fairness, I didn't call the Magefa religious expectations. I was more calling the Magefa the fact that we have young adults with severe mental health issues.
Right.
That's the Magefa. I think part of contributing to that.
So I actually think the points that you brought up were excellent, because it is getting in the way of a lot of situations that can be avoided.
Thank you.
The only question I would say to that is, does it mean that the grass is green on the other side, and where there's no religious expectations, do we have less incidence of mental health disease? And the answer is unequivocally no. I can tell you in my case, just that very fact, you have to understand, we took a lot of flack for taking her out of Chabad. I come from a very well-known Chabad family.
Oh, can I use the word? Are you Gej?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I don't want to use that word.
Can I just say one thing? I don't think, just to clarify, I don't think that it's a religious issue. I think it's the way religion is used.
Correct.
It's a person issue.
Correct. What you said was beautiful. You said
I just want
we
to
have
clarify my
to
statements.
impart a joyful Judaism. And I thought, and by the way, Chabad, that's what we do. So we have to impart a joyful Judaism. And even in Chabad families, there are these expectations and other problems and so on. So in our case, I was ready with complete clarity to say, this is not the place for Yocheved. She needs to go to a school that's not Chabad, where her expectations of dress and behavior are not the same as were, if it was the same in Chabad school. And so be it. And even fast forward many years later, there's nothing that, there are many things that I'm not proud of, but I can tell you, and this is probably why that your talk triggered me a little bit, because this is the one area where I'm totally proud of how I handled it from a religious perspective. I couldn't give a shit. I just didn't care. And in fact, I can tell you the story at length if you want, but I can tell you that she wore pants for the last year of her life, and I encouraged her to wear pants. I was one who came to her and I said, I think you need to buy a new wardrobe and start wearing pants. And I think you look beautiful in it, and she did. And so it doesn't apply. It didn't really apply to us in any way. And would you agree?
Yeah, totally agree. And just so you know, I don't know if I ever told you this, but that was something that when you told her that she should wear pants, that she called me and she was crying. She was so happy about that. I don't know if I ever told you that.
It's small things sometimes like that. Small things like that can sometimes make a...
So maybe it's small to some of us, but some people...
No, I don't think it's such a small thing. I mean, it's seemingly small, but I think it's permission from your parents to be yourself. It's support from a parental figure to express yourself as you are. And like you said, it's not full license. You still had religious expectations on her. You put her in a from school, but there's levels of religious expectation.
I didn't put her in Shalva because I had religious expectations.
Well,
I think she had religious expectations from herself, but she just didn't want to fly so extreme.
Okay, valid, right?
If she had told me, I want to go to public school, I'm not sure what I would have said. I would have said, we live in Brooklyn. Absolutely not. Like nothing happening. If you're living, in a fancy, residential area, maybe, maybe not,
I want to ask a question because we're actually getting to something that I think is important. So obviously in our community, and probably most communities, but there's a tremendous focus and scrutiny, so to speak, how our children turn out, right? And naturally, I think that there's a lot of, typical shame, insecurity, embarrassment when our children don't turn out typical or exactly as we would
I know you spoke
expect.
about that, yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, first of all, did you experience any of that? And if you did, what could you share with people, other parents who are going through that right now and are maybe not really handling their kids properly because they're so affected by their own shame and insecurity about how other people are viewing them?
Depends on the age. So it's okay to tell a 12-year-old who comes to you and says, I want a smartphone. We could talk about social media. Does I want a smartphone? No, I'm not giving you a smartphone. Not because of any religious reasons, maybe because of psychological reasons. And most importantly, I'm your parent, not your friend. So that's okay. The problem arises in later years when parents still try to hold on, 17, 18, 19, 20. There's a girl in Crown Heights that I can proudly say that the reason she can even walk into her parents' house is because I told the parents, you've had 20 years of trying to, impart your religious values. We're done. You're done. Your job right now is just to love her. And that's it. So she's wearing pants, you got to let her in. You can't make this rule that you can't come into your house because she's wearing pants. So my message is to, and it's all going to be done through Dark Shalom, trying to, like you said, you'll feel happy in a happy way. Anything that's going to be draconian is not going to have any effect, even from a very young age. And most kids don't learn from being told what to do, but learn from example anyways. So hopefully those discussions won't be even necessary.
I guess my question was more though, how you responded, not looking back 2020's hindsight, but in those moments, dealing with that. Do you have any lessons to give parents that are going through it right now, or truly looking back on it now as well, about like how you would tell someone to deal with their own feelings of, let's say, insecurity that their kids are not turning out exactly how they wanted them to?
Well, this is a question that can be asked of any community, not only the religious community.
Fair. I agree.
Right? So, this vicarious living has to be stopped.
But parents trying to live their lives through their kids.
Their lives, their own failings through their kids. It's got to stop. And I'm guilty of that myself. And I've worked very hard on myself over the years. And you've never taught me, and my two sons now are teaching me the process of learning. And as I always I'm very careful to say I wasn't the perfect parent. I made a lot of mistakes, and I own those mistakes. But now that I'm on the other side of it in some way, and I look at other parents with their kids, just at this point, like you said, just the only thing you can do is just show them the joyful side of Judaism. And if I have another friend who's a Yale-educated lawyer who's not religious, and he's upset with his kids. I was say to me, identifying details, because his kids are not going through the same kind of Ivy League education that he is. And I'm saying, just stop it. Just be a parent and be there for them and understand what they're doing.
I really like how you said that earlier. Like, I really like how it's like at 12, like, you're the parent, like, you can parent.
That's
But
okay.
like, kid's 20 years old, like, you're done.
You're done.
Just love them.
You're done.
You're done.
You're done.
I think a lot of people need to hear that. I think a lot of parents need to hear that. That's beautiful.
Adina, when you were in school and as a friend to Yocheved, right? Did she show like a significantly higher level of compassion and sensitivity to yourself, to friends, that maybe you think was influenced by the fact that she was going through such an intense emotional journey?
That's a really interesting question. I think that, throughout, especially since her first attempt in November 2019, our relationship,
Sorry to interrupt you. How old was she then?
23.
The first attempt, she was 23.
Yeah, she was 23. Our relationship was a little different in that last year between her first attempt and when she was successful. And she was, our relationship was a little bit more predicated on her needs and on her going through a really challenging time. I think before that, when things were maybe a little bit calmer for her, yeah, I do think that part of it was that she did have this compassion for people because she knew that people were going through things that no one else knew about
Right.
in the same way that she was.
It's so funny that you just brought this up because I wanted to ask you about that. A lot of times, especially with mental health issues and issues that there is no clear example of how to quote unquote fix, such as someone has the flu. Okay, let's wait 10 days, be there for them, and then it ends. With mental health issues, people go through, it gets extremely grueling on family members, friends, when it kind of just never ends and the person needs, a significant shoulder to lean on. It could get really grueling and tiresome. Do you have any recommendations to people who are experiencing that of how to handle, maybe set boundaries, how to handle, those types of situations and kind of treading that balance of like being there for them, but at the same time, kind of like living your own life, because that's probably
Yeah.
something very difficult.
Yeah, I think that it was exacerbated for me being a therapist. I was in my first year of graduate school when she had first attempted. And so I was already someone else's therapist. And so now here's my friend who's maybe going through the same things as my patients are going through. And she's my friend and I'm a therapist who's in, kind of training for all of this stuff. And it was really hard for me to set those boundaries. Before that, I think when she had attempted, it was everything was in the open, right? Like her parents knew about it. There was no secrets anymore. And it was all much more serious because now it was like, okay, all of the theoretical, I don't want to be alive anymore, or all of that stuff. It was very real. You tried to do something to kill yourself. It didn't work, but you tried. And so after that, I was very open with Avremi and with Dini. Anytime Yocheved texted me, I see something seemed a little bit off. She was having a really bad day. I wasn't there. I was, an hour away from her. I couldn't go help her. And so I would immediately text Dini and say, I think Yocheved needs someone to check in on her. Like and Yocheved knew. Yocheved knew. I never kept anything from her. But I think advice is that you're not their therapist, you're not their doctor, you're not their parent. You can't, even if you are their parent, like there's only so much that you can do, and you need to set those boundaries with that person, assuming they can have those boundaries set with them. Yocheved and I were very honest with each other. We actually had a system of when she was in distress, what level of distress it was. Is it just like, hey, I'm kind of bored and maybe I'm always a little bit suicidal, so I want to talk to you, versus, if someone doesn't help me right now, I'm not safe. So we had that, and she would kind of tell me what level she was at. And I had a lot of pressure when she was at that, level 3 of I'm going to hurt myself if you don't talk to me. That was a lot of pressure on myself. But that was also when Dini and Avremi came in, and I was like, okay, go
so
for
you
it.
would message them when that happened.
Yeah.
So this way you weren't got it. And Avremi, what about for you? Like, how would you advise people? Obviously you went through it, of like still managing to function your day-to-day life with like, it's constant, obviously you want to be there for your child, limitlessly, but we only have so much capacity and energy, right?
The lesson that I learned is that anyone who's in a position of care, dealing with these kinds of situations, need to go to their own therapy, have their own therapist,
Well,
to process their own feelings of what the hell's going on, and also give them methodology, give them advice on how to handle it. I can tell you that I was in the dark, much of it, not understanding what it is.
and not knowing, you're saying how to set the boundaries, when to
The
set them.
boundaries, what can I say, what can I not say?
Right,
And
The
who,
littlest tiny things I could say could be a trigger,
right.
and what not to do.
and where did you go? You went to a therapist.
I did not. I did,
you
for
did not.
my own. I can tell you now that I did not.
You didn't know.
And
Right.
I could tell you this story only because we've since reconciled. And I'm telling you because I want to be real about it.
Sure.
Yocheved had a very close friend who he is nodding head already.
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah. I should go ahead, right? I mean, the
It's
point
fine.
of the story.
No, no.
The story is a very important story, and I don't think if she hears story that I'm saying, because we reconciled the day that Yocheved passed away, I called her up and I said, we have to reconcile. I did.
It was the next day.
The next day.
Yep, because you told me not to. Okay.
Well, they're the Leviathan, but let's
Yeah,
put it that way.
it was the
They're
day of the
Leviathan.
funeral.
It was the day of the funeral.
Could you share the story?
What's that?
Could you share the story?
Yeah, I'm going to share the story. So what happened was that, and this goes to your question, and that is
Can
that.
you ever move the tissue box to that side just because it might
Sorry.
be blocking my shot? No, it's fine.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
What had happened was that her first attempt, she made an attempt, and then she messages a friend of hers.
I'm going to interrupt you. She texted a bunch of people saying, I love you. I got that text. It was normal. Yocheved would sometimes just tell me that she loves me. That was like the kind of person that she was. And that was it. And I texted her back, love you too. That was it, whatever. And later that night, at like 4 a.m, I got the text. I can pull it up. I still have the
Yeah.
text on my phone. It was a text that said, basically, I tried to kill myself. I overdosed. I did whatever. This isn't your responsibility, because that was the kind of person she was. She wanted to make it very clear that it wasn't my fault. I didn't do anything. I'm going to tell my parents when they wake up. I was asleep when I got that text, so I didn't see it until 6 a.m. You can continue with your story now.
Okay, so she texted a friend who was up, and the friend is like, "Are you okay? Are you this?" Having this whole conversation, this long texting conversation, and eventually she woke us up, and that was the least severe of her attempts. It was more severe, then the third one was successful. But I took his friend aside very shortly thereafter, and I said, "What were you thinking? You just been told by a close friend of yours that she had tried to kill herself. Why are you not driving to Crown Heights, knocking on our door, calling our cellar, calling the cops?" And she was in tears, and she apologized, and she was a very close friend of Yocheved's, and I did not allow her in my home for an entire year.
I'm sorry.
I did not allow her in my home, our home.
Oh,
I don't want to see her. It was so stressful for me that, how could you have done that? How could you, what do you, like, maybe it's like a disassociation thing with where kids are texting these days. "Oh, you tried to kill yourself. Oh, very nice. How do you feel?" Like, not a real conversation. Like, you live
Right.
a while away, get on the phone, call who you need to
Yeah.
call, and make things happen. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because I now understand that she's actually not to blame. She didn't have the skills. She didn't know what she could have done.
Yeah.
And she tried to do the best she could. So if you're asking me, friends need to be educated, and perhaps there should be instruction given in schools if they're ever faced with such a
That's what
situation.
yeah.
Someone comes and tell you something, she say, especially if I've just tried to kill myself, boom, I saw that.
If you
Cops.
see something, say something.
That's
Say
something I was wondering, like, are you now an advocate for that? Because I've thought this myself in the past. I've thought this myself. Like, schools, there's a lot of things schools should teach that they don't. There's a lot of things schools should teach,
I don't want to
like just basically how to deal with anxiety. But should schools teach basic skills on how to deal with friends and peers' mental health, like in extreme cases?
Without a shadow of a doubt.
That needs to be taught in schools.
Without a shadow of a doubt. Now, in all fairness, It doesn't exist in secular schools. That doesn't exist in frum schools.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a frum thing. It's
You know?
it's a school thing.
It's a school thing. So, they were both 23. They're young adults. I believe she should have had the capacity to say, wait a second, you just overdosed. Every minute is important. Let's get the cup. We were sleeping, the parents at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, of course.
In that situation, what you drive over to their place
questions.
immediately,
Yeah.
you call the
I
parents.
just had a call. I just had a call from someone a few weeks ago. A father whose daughter's friend had come over and said she's leaving and she's going to be killing herself. She was on a bike. She lives not in Brooklyn.
What does that mean? She's leaving.
Oh, she left her home. She came to visit a friend. The father
Okay.
called me.
Yeah.
She has a daughter, teenage daughter, and this teenage daughter has a friend. And the friend of having a conversation, the friend goes, I'm going now, but I'm killing myself. I'm going for a bike. You'll never see me again.
Whoa.
He says to me, what should I do? What should you do?
Salah, Amudim, this,
Salah,
that,
Amudim.
whatever you need to do.
I don't know about Amudim, but Salah for sure. The parents, have you called the parents? No, I don't know if I should call the parents. Yeah, get on
It's
the phone.
embarrassed. I don't know if I should call the
Cool.
parents.
Don't
Little
call the
awkward
parents.
to
Try to,
happen.
try to track her down.
Bro, it's because
Try to track her down. Make sure she's with somebody. Do what you have to do. You're younger than me. You're an adult.
Yeah.
Just
No.
get on the phone.
I think this really does speak to. I actually think there's a lot of credence to what you were saying about how it's like with the texting. Like we are so desensitized, especially the younger generation. Like I go on TikTok and I'll see like a funny video, and the next thing I see is like the worst crimes and atrocities happening in all over the world. Like we are saturated with it, and texting is not a person. Like people. There's a reason people break up over text because it's not real.
Yeah.
The feelings aren't real, or even because it's all digital. And so like it's sad, and I'm not making an excuse for anyone, but I think we're dealing with like a real, there's a bit of a pandemic in the world of like people disassociating from like real human beings on the end of the line.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that goes with the social media situation and
Yeah.
and the whole technology.
Which I do want to pivot here a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask one question, Zach, that I just wanted that goes in the flow of this? we were just
100%.
talking about? Thanks. Obviously, after the first attempt, for sure, you're dealing with a constant state of anxiety, right? Of like, I mean, I don't know how, that must be palpable. I don't know how you even lived every second, honestly. How did you manage that? Like, what
What do you do?
Yeah, what do you do? Like every day, you don't know when the next shoe's going to drop, so to speak. You're always just in constant state of limbo.
Well, first off, let me just say that my own anxiety predated Yocheved's attempt. I have my own anxiety that I got to deal with. And the answer to your question is that I was kept busy. There's no time to think how anxious you are.
Right.
Yes, you're on the phone with therapists, with doctors, with insurance, with Yocheved's high school. When she was in hospital. And kudos to Rabbi. I don't know if you guys know Rabbi Friedman. What's his first name? Zev Meir Friedman. You've heard of Rambam, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So he's the Rosh of Rambam, and Yeshiva was a sister school. And I called him up and I said to him, she doesn't have to be valedictorian. She's been out of school 3 months. No, we're giving her examinations on her own timetable. She deserves to be valedictorian. Why did I mention that? I don't remember.
We're talking about
how I
how
managed-
you
yeah.
dealt with.
So the way I dealt with it is that there were so many things to handle that year. In terms of getting necessary funds to pay for her care and throwing everything at it. And of course, at that point, my pride goes out the window. I'm not a wealthy person. And thank God, friends and family are very supportive and paying for her care and always being on top of her care. And after her second attempt, watching her like a hawk, and she outsmarted us, of course. I can tell you that story. And so there's no time to be, the anxiety actually, quite frankly, for me is more now than then.
Wow.
Why? If you don't mind me asking. Why do you think that is?
It's hard to explain. It's hard to explain why. I've always had anxiety, but now it's super level. I think we're almost 2 years out. The art sight's going to be in a month. 2 years. So this anxiety of the fear of forgetting is there.
Wow.
And the reality of I lost this beautiful person. She was a beautiful person. This happened on a Tuesday, and she, on Sunday evening, there was a bit of a family squabble. And I remember her coming down to my office. And she had this look in her eyes, which was, and now I understand, but she had this look in my eyes and she said to me, she held my hand and she said, Dad, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And 2 days later, she was gone. So
That's amazing to hear that even to the end, she was thinking about other people. And
she was
a carer.
She, I don't know if you read her Instagram post, a fine Instagram post, which was scheduled Instagram post, only got released after she had died. Which you can do on Instagram, but obviously there's some sort of third-party app that you can do that on.
I guess.
Right?
Yeah.
She sent a scheduled email to us, which we received the next morning.
Wait, it was her note?
Yeah, her note, which is not a public letter.
Oh, wow.
Did that
So
note?
I'm saying this because the entire letter is nothing vitriolic about it. It's all kindness. You did everything for me. I love you. This is, I'm explaining this. I'm explaining that.
Yeah.
She
She wasn't angry.
She wasn't angry. She addressed trauma, actually, because that was often a discussion. There's a trauma there. She addresses it in the letter.
Did she feel there was a specific trauma that she referenced?
No, the reason I'm mentioning that is because we have a doctor in Crown Heights named Dr. Rosen. And one day he comes to me and he says, he's about tshuva. It's the Pavich about tshuva. I'm sure you've met a few of those, right?
Yes.
He says to me, he's a doctor. He says to me, I think you have it as dislocation of the neshama. Those are his words. Like, seriously. Those are his words.
What does that even mean?
Yeah, I said to him, is that a medical term, Dr. Rosen? Like, what are you talking about? Is that a medical term? Must be some kind of trauma there. Trauma? What's that? This, that, and the other. Okay. So I sat her down one evening and I said to her, I'm starting to learn about trauma.
Right.
And you're 23 years old, or 22 at the time. And we've lived this life. And if there's anything that you've experienced in my hands that you consider to be traumatic, let's talk about it. I own it. I can only apologize for it. I can only learn from it and move on. I am imperfect. She kept on telling me, no. My wife was sitting there, also Dini was sitting there. I'm just, none of that. And eventually she said to me, yeah, I guess she wanted to get me off her back. She told me that, I would hit her when she was, a small child. A few times that I hit her, or the times that I spoke to her in a disrespectful way or an angry way, which, as a therapist once told me, we have kids without instruction manuals and we learn on the job, and we're not perfect. And it took me a while through therapy to understand that. Yeah, I'm owning that fact that I was not perfect and I made a lot of mistakes. I did make a lot of mistakes, and I sincerely regret that. But it didn't rise to the level of the classic terminology of trauma. Then in her note, she writes that I can find it if you talk to Dina. I can find it in the letter. She wrote, those that talk about trauma, capital T or the capital T,
Lowercase t, yeah.
You know this concept, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing that I can point to that can be the cause of all of this, but rather I'll find the quote and I'll actually read it to you, word for word. So I don't want to be misquoted. But one of the reasons that Adina is here, maybe you can talk about this now, is I wanted her to be here is because to this day I don't understand the fact that she had spent her second attempt after a year of intense therapy, after having gone to a place called in Utah? Center for Change, which is an eating disorder clinic. Intense therapy, thousands upon thousands of dollars being spent. And then in the middle of this, she and Adina spent the whole day together on a Sunday. It was a Sunday, right?
Sunday. I mean, I came over on Saturday night and I slept
Came
over.
on Sunday, and you slept over Sunday. You spent the whole day together. I have pictures of it. There was a TikTok video. Like most normal day. And then that night, boom. Which is an important lesson to
That
be
night
learned.
was an attempt or successful?
No, not successful.
Got it.
Successful
Okay.
that night.
And what do
attempt.
you think's the lesson there?
Well, first of all,
What do you think?
I'd like Adina to describe it.
My joke is that the lesson is she hated hanging out with me so much that she was like,
no.
we're done. That's the joke. That's not what I really believe. Yeah, we hung out. I had come over on Saturday night. I we hung out. I mean, me and Yocheved didn't ever really do things. Like we just kind of just sat around and like hung
It's
out
the best way to do
on
things.
TikTok, on Instagram. Like we were just kind of hanging out in each other's
Actually
company.
enjoyed each other's company.
Exactly.
Crazy.
Exactly. It was like our joke. I would go there for Shabbos and Dini would try to get us to like leave the house at one point, and we would just sit there. We just never left. So we decided we were going to go to the Strand bookstore,
Nice.
and Dini said Yocheved loves books, hoarded them. Like she's really loved to read, and I did too. So Dini said, you can't go buy more books for this house if you don't get rid of you need to get rid of some books. You just need to. And so we went through all of Yocheved's books, and I would take the books that she didn't want, and she, kind of put the books that she did want away. And then I drove us to the Strand, and we went to the Strand. We both got a bunch of books, and that was it. And I left. And the next day I get a call from Avremi saying there was an attempt. I'm sorry to tell you this. There was an attempt yesterday. Were there any signs? And first of all, I was like, well, if there were signs, I think I would have told someone that there were signs. But no, that there really weren't any signs. I mean, first of all, if you were planning on ending your own life, why wouldn't you give me the better books? Why are you keeping any books for yourself? Because then if you die, then these are like sad suicide books. They're not books that I just wanted to read to begin with. So I told her that. I yelled at her about it. But yeah, and to be honest, I think that event was more traumatic for me than her actual death, in the sense that I'm her best friend. Why didn't I know that she was going to go home and take a bunch of pills?
She may have not known.
She did know. I asked her.
She didn't.
She had a scheduled Instagram. Like she had the same schedule, but she didn't die, so she canceled it.
Oh,
She was so
Committed.
committed to not tripping up and people finding out that she couldn't do anything and people would find out.
I'm really curious what you guys think the
How did-
psychology is behind this going to lengths to just have a normal day with your friend and not to let people know. Is it a shame thing, or is it
No,
trying to protect
no.
people?
no.
What do you think it is?
It's I need to do something. Like in business, you have a goal. I'm going to do something, and nothing's going to get in my way.
It was stubborn. It was
Yeah, that's what it is.
twisted sort of ambition.
Yeah, I mean, she writes about
that adamance towards dying, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like no hatred, no nothing. No, not angry, just significant pain, just to the degree that just can't handle more.
There's
Is that
pain.
correct?
There's pain, and with that, I now know there's happiness, and this is also something that kids need to be trained about, because once they figured out, part of the problem for us was that after she came back from treatment in Utah after Sukkot,
November
for Hanukkah, her last months, she was just great. She was like happy and cheerful. And to contrast her first attempt and her second attempt, the first attempt, she was a mess in hospital, an absolute mess. You were there.
Yeah, I was there that day.
She was an absolute mess. The second attempt, which was unsuccessful, she was like 10 minutes later, Dad, get me out of here. I think I'm ready to go home. Like, this is enough. I'm done. I'm good. You know?
She didn't want to tell anyone
She didn't want to tell anyone what?
that she
She
didn't want to
attempted.
tell any friends. The only reason she spoke to me was because you had already told me that she attempted.
All right, we're good. Let's go home. I said, Yocheved, your liver is a little messed up and you're staying here and you're probably going to go end up in Westchester for an extended period of time. But she was happy. And even visiting her at hospital every day, just cheerful. I read books with her. And the reason is because they were resigned. They knew what they were going to be doing in 3 weeks from now. So there's a happiness. And we're not told this, but no therapist told us.
What was that again?
There's a happiness
There's a
in
re-
having decided.
Yeah.
In not being between. I mean, there's a Gemara that says one of the greatest joys you can experience is
Yeah.
coming to a conclusion in a suffix.
Suffix, exactly.
So like I decided.
Exactly.
Sorry for
You
me.
can breathe easy.
I'm sorry. I'm not. I want to understand this. What you're saying.
Yeah, I know. It's very hard to understand.
No, not that I just didn't get 100% what you're saying. On the timeline, after her second attempt, you're saying she was happy because what was the difference between the first and the second again?
Well,
Meaning
First
in
of
her,
all,
in her thought process. What was the difference?
sorry?
In her thought process, meaning you're saying that she was happy. Why was she a wreck the first time?
She fuddled it up the first time.
Mhm.
The second time, it was more severe. It was physically more severe,
Mhm.
even though she did not was not successful. But at that point, she knew what she was going to be doing, and she realized. She wrote about it. She realized The third attempt is going to be the final attempt, and I'm going to get it right. You know, and then she was happy because she's now at peace. You know, I'm going to be gone in 3 weeks, and this is now I can.
Pain is going to go away.
And I can spend whatever money she writes about. I can spend all the money I have. I can, you know, swear like a sailor. It doesn't matter anymore. I'm out of here in 3 weeks. I don't have to be a nice person anymore. I'm out of here. I'm happy. That's good.
I'm sure she was still a nice person.
She was still a nice person. And
Wow.
I mean, just to give you, you know, the timeline of I think Hanukkah ended 2 years ago on a Sunday. So we took my son back to Morristown to yeshiva. Came back. I'm sorry. No. Ended on a Sunday night, and then Monday morning, we took my son back to Morristown, and actually my wife went, and they went to the Dream Mall. They had a great day. There's video of it. They would have this is actually Monday. They spent a fantastic day together. Joyful. She's going into stores. She's buying stuff. Everything's cool. That night there was a l'chaim of a family member. Everything's great. And I said to her, as I would always do, I said, "Hey, you want to skip out?" We would both do that because we were both antisocial. I still am. And we went home and we'd sit on the couch watching videos together. And I don't remember which videos we watched together, music videos. And then she went to sleep and I went to sleep. And the next morning, cheerful as heck, and she was about to leave to her job. And hey, you want to make me an omelet? Sure, Dad. Knowing that 2 hours later, it's over.
Wow. So how long after she got back from treatment did she pass away? Shortly thereafter?
About a month later, but no, about 2 months later.
Her second attempt, which was, I want to say, maybe 2 weeks after she got back from treatment, was November 6th.
Oh, so
she died on December 27th.
Oh, so right after she got back from treatment, attempt number 2, and then a month later.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Was there what was the feeling after spending all that money in treatment, all that energy to get her, to go, and then was there any sense of what's the emotion? Is that just anger? Is that what happens? A week later, she's back to square one.
So a year prior, when my wife woke me up and said, "Yechiva just swallowed a whole bottle of Tylenol," it's like, it's terrible. It's Klatsala, and I'm just feeling terrible. We're going to help our daughter. Fast forward a year later, my wife wakes me up and shows me this empty container of Tylenol. I remember thinking just this intense feeling of anger. I took the bottle and I just threw it with such anger, thinking in 2 seconds, all that I've gone through in the year prior, sent to the best therapists, sent to the best nutritionists, by the way, because nutritionists have to be trained in eating disorders. So it's another level of skill.
Yeah.
Sending her to a clinic in Utah, going through that separation. We went together Tishrei, paying all that effort, and really my business just went to the side.
Yeah.
And I was angry. I was just angry, not at her, but just angry.
The situation.
God,
We tried all of this. I don't know about God. I'm not so religious. I tried all of that, and then boom. God. Yeah,
I was gonna ask
I'd be angry at God.
if you what your relationship with. First of all, during all of this, did you find solace or wisdom? Did either of you go to religious figures, rabbis, or did you look at Sfarim? Was there something in Judaism that helped you get through this, or gave you tips or wisdom on it?
My wife Dini is far more
spiritually inclined.
Yeah, I don't like the word religious. I really don't like the word.
I don't really love it either.
But more spiritually inclined than I am. For me, I like to just have direct conversations. I'll just curse out at God. Just what are you putting me? What's the purpose of it? To this day, I tell my wife, what does God want from me that I should still be here with all this pain?
I was always told, a wise friend once told me that he wishes more people would cuss out God.
Yeah.
Get angry with God.
Get angry with God,
Yeah.
exactly. And what's a rabbi going to tell me, for example, we had to send it to an eating disorder clinic. So straight away in my stupidity, I'm thinking, okay, let me find an eating disorder clinic in the U.S. that has kosher food. And I found one.
Oh, wow.
And then a friend of mine in Utah says to me, who deals, actually, the shliach there about Zippel, who actually deals with this on a continual basis, says to me, "Are you mad? This is therapy. Why are you looking for a kosher place? Just look for the best place."
Yeah, of course.
And he even said to me, ask a rabbi. And I said to myself, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. I don't think I have to ask a rabbi.
Pikuach nefesh.
And there are people that would ask rabbis and like, I don't think I had to ask a rabbi for that.
Yeah.
And I didn't. And that's the place she went to. Was it the perfect experience? It wasn't the perfect experience. They were very good. They bought her kosher meat, which they, cooked with all their chazar, which is fine. Whatever. I don't
Yeah.
care.
The thought that counts.
Very interestingly enough, what is very interesting about that her stay in Utah is that she displayed a level of religious sensitivity that she had never displayed before.
That's very interesting.
Maybe she had Jewish patients that were not religious. Jewish, not patients, but what do you call them? Other girls in the program that were not religious. Like I sent her a shofar. I had to teach her how to blow the shofar. I sent her material on Rosh Hashanah. This is someone that never went to shul. So it's her.
And she was doing a little
shlichus. Rabbi Zippel went over to Ben Shlomo Esrog with her. She took it kind of seriously. It was very interesting.
It's so interesting. I was listening to, you sent me obviously her Shloshim speech.
Right.
And I was listening. I don't remember if it was you who was talking about the fact that she, apologize. I don't remember if it was you or you were talking about the fact that she was on Rosh Hashanah, I think, or she went to shul once and she was extremely triggered and she was crying. And can you just expound on that story? Because it was
actually, I can actually probably read it.
I think it was when you were reading your speech.
I mean, I can read it from her letter. I have the letter right here. She writes about it. It's the most beautiful thing. It actually changed my life in terms of how I look at godliness. But until I find it, I'll just tell you that she never went to shul.
Why not?
Why not? What do you think?
Too much pain in a relationship with God.
Yeah.
No, it's boring.
Yeah, I mean, before, had you not listened to my speech, had you not listened to my speech, and you encounter a child in a religious family that's not going to shul, what's the first thing that comes to?
I mean, the first thing that would come to mind is, I don't know, they're not interested in religion, but most of the time it's far deeper than that. That's just a very surface-based.
You can be pretty interested in religion and not love going to shul.
Yeah, but there's also other options of like people going to shul. It causes them significant pain when they're very involved in religious activity because of various different things in their life that make it very difficult for them. It's not that they don't want to be connected to God or be religious. It's just that whenever they do it, it causes such intense emotion.
For some reason, I can't find that exact excerpt right now, but basically what you said, and this really changed my life and how I look at religion and religious journeys. Taking the minutiae and the details out of it, so important. And she'd say that I didn't go to shul. I have to find it.
Gotta find it.
But and she said, people think I don't go to shul, and I'd actually get into fights with her. Look, not arguments, fights. And the reason I'm getting into fights with her about it is not because I wanted her to be more religious. That was not the reason. I need to make that very clear. The reason is that my wife loves to go to shul, and she loved when Yechev went with her to shul. She just absolutely loved it. And I said, just do it for mommy, just like go to shul and sit and read books, which she did sometimes. Just go to shul and just sit with your mother, and sometimes she did, and most times she did not. And then she writes that, here we go, I found it. So I'm just going to read it, and that I can talk for itself, all right? These are her words. By the way, the reason that I'm pulling up excerpts from her letter that she sent us, I don't know what you guys think, but I kind of figure that if someone's sending a suicide note, got to be truthful. Otherwise, who do they have to bullshit at that point?
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you?
Of course.
Right?
Why would they lie?
Why would they lie at that point, right?
Of course not.
So I'm just taking it at face value. She writes the following. She says, my connection, and I may have quoted this during the speech, my connection with God is fleeting. When I can connect, I'm so overwhelmed with love and gratitude that they spill over into tears until I can no longer feel at all. I don't like going to shul or similar environments because I have to hold back my true feelings. I have to hold back my raw emotion from turning into heart-wrenching cries. I can't make a scene in public. For so many years, I was seen as a rebel, someone who hated religion and God, someone who hated my community and wished I had no part in it. And really, I simply didn't understand. And what I did understand was too much to share with the world. that it was easy to turn my back. I think about God every day, at least every hour, sometimes every minute and every second. I think about my purpose, God's purpose, why I would be put in this world simply to suffer. So
That sounds like someone who has a very special connection to God.
yeah,
That's
More
Yeah.
than I would say
yeah.
anyone
so
who's going to shul.
It taught me such a lesson. It taught me such a lesson. And look, even before she passed away, Dina will tell you, we had very diverse crowds on our Friday nights meals. I mean, really diverse crowds. But it taught me a lesson from there on, even to like the judgment is out the window because we don't know what journey someone is traveling, and they can be more spiritual than I. Even though I do put on the film every day,
It's so
but they could have a connection that I don't have, that I'll never be able to attain.
correct. And if they're not doing something, you have no idea why.
I have no
Like,
idea.
They may not even know why.
It's
Like,
often also people who struggle with God and with religion. I mean, we'll translate Yisrael, right? Struggle with God. Like, it's usually, not always, but oftentimes the ones who struggle, their religious connection, even if they're less observant, it's fought for. It's fought. Some people don't fight.
Yeah.
Some people don't fight, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
It's beautiful if it clicks and everything works out fine. But I think that fight, more honest relationship.
Well, I think that was exactly the case. So she wasn't outwardly religious,
But she was inwardly incredibly
I mean, I'm sorry,
spiritual.
sorry. We have a mutual friend that this friend sat at a dinner table. She just found out she's Jewish. She told we heard about Simon Jacobson for a meal. Simon Jacobson is my wife's cousin.
Who? Jacobson?
Simon Jacobson.
Y.Y. Jacobson's wife.
brother,
Oh.
brother, who's famous.
Yeah, that sounds bad. I just want wife when it's a brother. What's his name?
YY's wife?
No,
No, the
Simon.
brother.
Sima?
Simon.
Simon.
Oh, Simon.
Yeah, I thought you said Sima too.
Sima.
Simon. He wrote a book called Towards a Meaningful Life. Anyway, so someone said at our table, I'm not religious. And he said, you probably mean you're not observant of, certain set of laws. And it's not judge yourself or me to judge you whether you're religious or not. So, but to your point that you said that you made in that speech last year, it's a problem in the religious community. This is the barometer of how these kids are judged.
I would say that it kind of dovetails beautifully with just like you don't know what pain someone's in.
It's so powerful.
You also don't know. Sorry. Just like you don't know, like she put on a brave face to the world and you have no idea how much pain she's in. You also don't know how much spirituality someone's feeling. You don't know their ideas about God. And you can't attempt and they might never show you their real thoughts of God if the way you relate to them is, well, you don't fit my idea of a religious person, so therefore they're not going to end up showing you that connection that they're feeling, their spirituality.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's really the perfect example of, you just can't judge. I mean, someone like that at her level could have been in Hashem's eyes. Just call it what it is. It could be in such a greater place than anyone that we look at that we think is like a tremendous gadol or whatever. Like their challenges could be that much less than hers, and where she got. I mean, the perfect example. That's such a beautiful thing you just said.
I believe that to be true.
Huh?
I believe this.
It's yeah, totally. It's crazy. Did she ever have like months on end or years on end where she was in such a deep level of depression that she didn't leave the house? Or like there was just, because I know a lot of times depression, like especially clinical depression, which it seemed like she had, right? Like real intensity.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Right. I'm saying, yeah. A lot of times that goes with like just being in bed for like weeks and weeks at a time, no showering, all that type of stuff.
She did shower. She would spend a lot of time in bed. I didn't like it because I didn't think it was healthy for her. There's also a point of contention a little bit. I don't say she would spend weeks on end in bed because she had stuff to do. She did do things, either school or volunteering. So, and she was like, intellectual and academic, so she had things to do. She wasn't like just spending time. That she did
So
spend,
interesting.
She
She was
spent
reading
too much
books.
time. She did spend too much time in bed.
That's fascinating though,
bedroom.
that she was still doing things in that level of depression. A lot of people that I know in that level of depression
Maybe it's,
do not
maybe
do
it's
anything.
a diversion. She actually writes about it. Maybe it's a diversion.
She does.
I wanted to ask Adina, as someone who's studying psychology, what do you think some things that people who are laymen get wrong about depression?
I think that, right? I mean, I do think that there are people who spend hours and days and weeks in bed, but there are people who are functioning depressed people who functioning any, kind of insert any mental health disorder or term into there, and they're functioning and they're able to put on that brave face. And sometimes, like Avremi said, sometimes that looks like kind of going all in with school, but sometimes to the extent of if something isn't perfect, then you kind of have a panic attack because that was the only thing that was working for you, and that was your coping skill, and now it's not anymore. And so so she, I think, used her academics as her coping skill. She had to go to school every day because she had to be perfect in school. And if she didn't have that, she could have been in bed all day. I can say that I know that there were days where, if Remy said she showered, there were days where the only thing that she accomplished that day was showering. And even that was really challenging for her. Like at 7 p.m., she would just say, she would kind of send me a checklist of got out of bed, showered, got into new pajamas, back in bed. And I'm proud of myself for that. And that was what she was proud of.
Sounds like me during the beginning of the pandemic. I feel like with depression and anxiety, especially when it's because there are different types of depression, right? I think, right? There's like clinical where it's like really it's a chemical thing. And then there's like there is a real depression that's not chemical that just comes from like really bad circumstances.
Yeah.
But the way people still talk about it's getting better, but the way it's talked about in society, when someone's like, I am sick, like I have chas v'shalom, I have cancer, I have this, I have that, it's like, oh, they have a disease. And I love that you called it a disease, that she had a disease, because that's something that's just so important to reiterate to people.
Clinical depression.
Depression is a disease.
Yes.
And like, you can't be like, well, why don't you work out or like do something to cheer yourself? Like they're sick. Like, it's not that there aren't things you can do, but like, you have to give them the same rachmanis. You don't get upset at someone for having a body disease.
No, I think also
you don't blame them.
To kind of expound on that, I think a lot of times friends and I'm sure parents also are kind of like, just suck it up, just like get it together, like come on, just we're gonna go to the park, it's gonna be awesome.
My favorite is the best gaslight from parents is, but you live a great life. Like did we not do enough? Like
I was guilty of that. Having said that,
no, meaning it's a disease.
I think it's a very normal human thing.
Yeah, it's a normal reaction. But it's so impossible to be put in the mind of someone in that level of tsar that like Zach was saying with cancer, it's like obvious. Like of course you can't get out of bed.
I would like to say that it's not impossible, and if people you've learned it's not impossible you don't have to know the level of someone's pain to be able to say like, I understand. Like yes, your life seems like it's great on the outside, but whatever you're saying, I have to take you at word value, and your emotions are valid, and sadness deserves to be felt. Regardless, it can be just as valid, even whether you grew up in war-torn, country or whether you grew up in the lap of luxury in America. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's true.
Sadness is sadness.
No, I agree.
And especially if it's chemical, it's in your body.
I think what you're saying also is that the same way we don't feel and know what it feels like to have,
By the way, not everyone agrees with that. That is about
You're saying the chemical thing?
the chemical thing.
What about it?
Yeah, I don't.
Everyone agrees with what?
What are your?
I don't know what your thoughts are, but
What are your thoughts on that?
there are people, there are
You just don't think that
professionals.
there are chemical.
There's such thing called chemical imbalance.
They don't think it exists, a chemical
I don't
imbalance.
think it's this.
They
That's
don't think,
interesting.
hold on a second. There are people that don't think clinical depression exists.
No.
I didn't say
He's saying
that.
Clinicians.
I didn't say that. There are people that don't think that chemical imbalance is a thing.
Isn't clinical depression the
I'm not
concept?
a doctor, but I've just read books. I can give you some books
Interesting.
if you.
No, it's worth researching.
Yeah.
They would obviously still, those clinicians would still say that it's a real
That's
thing.
real.
It's a very real.
real.
They would still probably even call it a disease.
It's
They would just say
real.
it's not chemical.
So what is
Real.
it? If it's not chemical, what am I missing?
That's probably real.
Well, there's a great book written by
Johan Hari.
Johan Hari. Thank you.
I did my research.
Called Lost Connections, and he talks about it. But he's not a psychologist; he's a journalist. But his work got picked up by a lot of other med professionals, and he talks about this. That this misnomer, chemical imbalance, destroyed his life until he realized that what's important in life is connections with self, with earth, with friends, community, and so on.
Because you go chasing the right combination of pills.
Living a healthy life. Obviously, some people have proclivity to depression more than others. Is it chemically? Listen, we have the whole that medicine thing going on today, which kind of puts chemical imbalance to the side and says, okay, maybe you do have it, maybe you don't have it, but we have ways to solve this.
Right.
Notwithstanding the fact that you may have a chemical imbalance.
Well, also, oftentimes those chemicals are things like serotonin, which you can get that chemical by jogging
Exactly.
or by loving someone and getting a hug.
Exactly right. So I don't want to say
serotonin.
I don't want to say it as a layman that those things are chemical imbalance. I don't know, but I just want to make it clear that there is a discussion out there that I don't think every professional in the world agrees with the idea that there is such thing called a chemical
that's valid.
imbalance.
Interesting. Would you say though that the mainstream opinion is that there is?
How else are they going to sell medication?
That's what you think it is.
That's fine.
Interesting. I mean,
Do you have thoughts on that? On the
Oh,
possible overprescribing of pills?
Yeah, you're the
I am not
psychologist.
doing any prescribing on my own. I definitely think that as a therapist, I believe psychotherapy works. I believe, getting serotonin from going on a jog, for example, can work. That being said, there are people who are so severely depressed that they can't go on a
Yeah.
jog.
Right,
And,
exactly.
right, like in order to even get them on the jog, maybe
need
they
a boost.
need, maybe
Yeah,
they need to
I don't
take
want to
something.
vilify pills. I'm
not
wait,
vilifying. I'm not
vilifying pills.
I'm agreeing with you. I'm not
Yeah.
vilifying pills either.
I'm saying there might be an overprescribing or an over focus on that in
Right.
regards to like Johan was saying, like connection and but yeah, no, pills are
Go pills.
go pills. Yeah,
Yeah, no.
go pills.
Pills, I mean, saved my life.
Really?
Absolutely.
How so? Can you expound on that?
I mean, anxiety, sleeping, but I'm now on a different course. I think I'm trying to actually jettison pills, get rid of it,
Mhm.
and exploring other avenues.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but you can be moted that you can admit that they helped a lot.
Not only to admit that they help, but I think that there are a lot of people that can't do without them.
Yeah.
Because they haven't made the decision. That they haven't made the decision that you know what, there may be a different way of doing this. So if they haven't made that decision, nothing else is going to help them.
Do you think it's
They need it.
placebo to a certain degree? You're saying?
I'm not saying it's placebo. I think that it's actually working, but they have not been explained, or they have not explored enough how other methodologies can help them, modalities can help them.
Interesting.
So, all the power to them.
Can you speak to anything? There's 2 points I want to bring up right now, but can you speak to is there anything that would bring Yocheved relief in the depths of her depression, which sounds like it went on for a solid 8 to 10 years, probably?
Yes.
Obviously, it's just endless torture. Was there anything that brought her some sense of relief overall that maybe, I don't know, could bring someone else, other people suffering from, intense depression, maybe it's a jog, maybe just something that helped her in those moments?
It's like anybody. Where she spent time with friends and family, it brought her tremendous relief. She loved spending time with friends and family.
Connection.
And about connection. And by the way, that's why the pandemic was so difficult.
Yeah. Well, they say
her
that
psychiatrist told me, by the way.
they say the mental health issues, what do you mean, the
Skyrocket.
data on mental health, alcoholics, all this stuff skyrocketed because people just sitting at home doing nothing with no ability to get out. I mean, marriages, I think this
the
is all,
psychiatrist told me that
yeah.
he's been in business 30 years, let's say. He's had 1 suicide a year. In 2020, he had 4.
Wow.
It's a big jump.
75%
That
increase.
is that's a big jump.
So I know she loved music, right? And you're a musician.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So can we just talk? I mean, there's a lot to discuss. Art, music. Zach is a big musician, great at many things when it comes to the art sector of things. Can
If
you
it doesn't make money, I'm good at it.
Check. Great.
Could you talk first of all? What was your relationship with her? Was there a strong connection between you and her because of music? Did music help you, help her get through these times? If you could
And you as well. Was it
Yeah.
part of your guys' relationship?
My connection was that she and I loved music, and she loved the music that I loved and took it much further.
What is the music you love? We might
Well-
as well talk specifics.
Well, I love the folk music of the 60s and 70s. I love, Dylan, Paul Simon,
No Justin Bieber?
not Justin Bieber, Sting, Woods, music that had lyrics that were very meaningful.
I was
of us
going to
were-
say.
Both of us were very, very, very.
You were into
very
the
lyrical.
poetry of it.
Poetry, yeah, poetry is just is ultra important. So I'm a guy who's like, you got to stick to the rules. So for example, she was about school in Crown Heights, and she would want to listen to music that I would listen to. You can't, because the rules of school is you can't listen to any secular music. Only Jewish music, from music, like that's it. Hey, you want to go to a different school? No problem. And then on the day she graduated, she and I went out to dinner at Limino Murray, and I had a hard drive, and I said, "This is your graduation present." And it was, I don't know, about 100,000 MP3s or so.
100,000?
Yeah, a lot of tens of thousands of MP3s of music that I grew up with and enjoyed, and so on. That continued. So the connection with music, if you follow Instagram page, so what an interesting thing that happened was that we would just jam at home and so on. She hated being photographed, and she hated having own pictures on social media and so on. She just liked to be private in that way. So we recorded 2 songs together. You can see it on Instagram. One is called Beyond the Sea, and one is called another jazz stand. And we're just singing at home. I'm playing, she's singing.
I think I saw this.
Diddy's filming it, just playing around. I think
Yeah.
nothing professional. And she comes to me and she says to me, "Hey, do you mind if I put this on Instagram?" I'm like, surprising, because she'd never asked that before. And I said, "Sure, go right ahead, put it on Instagram." But I realize now that she was trying to give me a gift, that she wanted me to remember her that way. Because those 2 Instagram posts are the 2 final ones before a final Instagram post. And then it was a New York Post, and then it got a lot of views because of it, so on.
Was that difficult for you to deal with the publicity of the death?
No, it wasn't difficult for me at all.
I
Wow.
actually want to dovetail into that because something that the person I talked to you about before that they prepped me about is you've been, since her death, very active on social media
Right.
and very vocal and very real and very honest.
Yeah, I
And
saw your
I'm
post.
wondering, first of all, I think that's incredible. I think that you're doing a lot of good work. First of all, just in honoring her, but also just, again, like I'm so into like I can't say the word.
Destigmatization,
Destigmatization.
if
Thanks.
that's a word.
I think it is.
Okay, great.
But I'm wondering if you got pushback because we were making that joke like, oh, it's awkward, suicide. People are uncomfortable around things like this.
Pushback, that would be surprising to
Not
me.
pushback like you're doing the wrong thing. Just like, I wonder how it. Well, I guess yeah.
What the feedback's been?
What's the feedback's been? So you're just being very public about this in this
So-
relationship.
Literally the Thursday before Yehovah passed, I told her half jokingly, said to her, "You feeling suicidal now?" I don't know why I'd asked her that night. Less than normal. I think I'm okay. Yeah, she was telling me. It was Thursday before the Tuesday. But Yehovah, if you do it, I'm gone 2 days later. And I meant it. I really, really meant it.
Wow.
But an interesting thing happened in that it became very public very fast. So the New York Post put in an article and so on, and then people started writing to me from all over the world, and I started writing them back to them. And for some reason, in a way that I did not intend, it became therapeutic for me. I didn't have to take pills or go to therapy at that moment. Maybe later, yes. At that moment, it became my own therapy. I was talking to people and spreading positivity. There's a person I met, you may know him, Eli Nash,
Yes.
who's a good friend of mine today. And we met after Yehovah passed away, which is a whole story in and of itself, how we met.
Is Ellie Nash the one that came out publicly, like speaks about sexual abuse?
Yeah, so
okay,
about porn addiction. Yeah,
Well,
his whole
porn
testimony
addiction. Okay, I just want to make sure I have the right person. Okay.
So it's interesting because I can say this publicly. I tell Ellie, and I've told him today. Ellie is not again, I'm not going to use a religious, he's not an observant Jew, right? He doesn't do an observant, but he's very into observant causes and so on. I consider him my mashpia. I consider him my rabbi.
Wow.
Babich Rebbe had this thing called Selach Harav. Every Jew should have somebody else
Mhm.
they can turn to for spiritual advice and so on.
Mhm.
And he's someone that I turn to a lot. And one of the reasons is because his messaging was very. He told me at the very beginning, be positive. Don't go negative. Don't go blaming. Don't go postal on the world. Just be positive. Positive things will happen. He actually sponsored an award in my daughter's name. So if you look at my social media posts, you'll see that it's all basically positive stuff. Believe me, there's a lot that I can talk about
I know.
that I'd love to talk about. And I even tell them, him and Simon, because they're part of this, it's all through his foundation. I'd want to talk about it. They're holding me back. So one day we'll get to it. That I
Why are
think
you
could
holding
affect-
back on those things?
Why?
Yeah, there's negativity in them. What's the?
Yeah, because it's negative. So the idea is to rather just to be positive, do positive actions, positive deeds, positive projects. A lot of light will dispel the darkness, and there's a lot of darkness, and more can be accomplished that way than the other way, which is what he taught me to do. And I'm not naturally that kind of person. If you go back to my social media before Yehovah passed away, I wasn't like that at all. I became that way after that.
Profoundly
So
changing.
do you feel that almost in a way because of the fact, like you obviously told her if she does it, you're going to do it. Do you feel that because of the fact that it became a public thing that like became significantly easier for you to
I
almost
can't
manage it?
explain it. You ask me, I'm explaining it. I'm just as you're talking to me, I'm saying, yeah, that's
Right.
probably what happened. I actually felt okay in the first few months.
Wow.
I was engaging. I had a lot of people that I help. There's a lot of people I'm in touch with, people that I don't know. There are a lot of people that have, young women who have gotten tattoos in her, is that the American way of saying it? In her memory. I'm South African. Who don't even know her, never knew her, never met her. And just, just a lot of these kinds of interactions, which were very beautiful, which kind of gave me a lot of chizuk.
Right.
I feel so dumb because I thought you were British this whole time.
I'm British, no, I'm South African. So,
That's bad.
at first my family was not happy with me. They were not they were not
Why?
happy that I was public.
Right.
But they realized that it was doing well for me, and also they started realizing that it was doing well for others as well. A lot of conversations started happening, which were important conversations, and they realized today. So I have the full support of my family for all of this.
Wow.
I think on the topic of spreading light, I want to talk a little bit more about, and I want to include you in this about, since it's happened, like, let's start with you, do you now get approached by people who are dealing with either their own or with their friends' own mental health issues? Have you become someone that like people turn to?
Not so much. I have not been as open on social media. After Yocheved died, I posted mainly because I felt like I don't want to have to tell every single person in my life that this happened, but I
Right.
kind of just want everyone to know that I'm out of the office for who knows how long. My friends know about it. So when my friends are dealing with similar situations, they'll ask me about it. But even so, talking about pushback, I think for myself, I was in the position of being the friend who kind of had to be on call for a really serious thing for a good 10 years of my life. And it's very hard for me to talk about it with friends because I hate putting someone else into the position of, hey, I really want to talk about this serious thing that you've never had to deal with. And suicide is dark. It's not a fun topic. It's not like, oh, let's complain about school or something that like
Right.
everyone's relating to. It's thank God most people in my life don't relate to it. The Gararis relate to it. You'll have his other friends relate to it, but none of my close circles relate to it. And so
But mental health, mental health issues, maybe not suicide. I think more people than we even realize relate to it.
yeah, definitely more people relate to
How
it.
did
for
you
sure.
how did you manage yourself? Obviously, the following day, month, multiple months. I mean, I'm sure it took a huge toll on you as well. Shock and all that. How did
Yeah.
you manage?
Start of the day.
What?
Start of the day after.
The day after she died, the day she died, I got a call from Avremi. I had just started a new job. I had actually taken a video of my new office to send to Yocheved. I just hadn't sent it yet because I didn't have service there. And I saw I had a missed call from Avremi. And I was like, either she attempted or she's dead. I knew. He wasn't calling me out of the blue for nothing. We've spoken on the phone about Yocheved before, but he'd text me and say, can I call you? When's a good time? And I left my job and I called him and he said, I think your words were, she was Baruch Dayan Ha'emet. She was successful. The funeral's tomorrow. I'll text you information. Tell anyone who you think needs to know. That was our phone call.
Oh, was that cold? Oh boy. Sorry.
Your daughter just died. It
Probably
was
shock.
fine. Yeah, it was.
In fairness.
I lost it. And then the next day was the funeral. And the truth is, the way that I managed was that I went on 4 vacations in 4 months after she died. I was fully running away from it. I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't want to think about it. I couldn't think about it. And it's interesting. At that time, that was the only time I realized how much pain she was obviously in, because I was in the most pain that I had ever been in my entire life, and I still didn't want to kill myself. And so
Right.
I couldn't have even imagined being in so much pain, like being in that much pain that you want to die. Like
So well said.
I
that's
I guess, knowing that, part of me is happy for her that she's not in that pain anymore. I'm sad for myself, but a lot of people ask me, am I angry at her? And yeah, obviously I'm pissed. Like, why'd you die? It was annoying for me. Annoying is not the right word, but the truth is that people say it was selfish, and it was, but she spent the first 24 years of her life living for other people. She didn't die sooner because of other people, and so she did something for herself, and that sucks for me. But why does she get to be in pain and I don't? Right? Like now I'm in pain, but she's not.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that argument before, but I think no one can actually make that argument, because until you're in that level of pain, you can't really decide what is selfish and what is not. That's my honest perspective. Like, if
Correct.
someone is being tortured actively every single day, don't be so quick to
There
say
are probably more
Yeah.
selfish things people can do than suicide.
100%.
Well, yeah, no, it just whatever. I just think it's a shallow.
Yeah.
It's talking about something you don't know. It's like, how could you ever make that judgment? So yeah,
She had posted on Instagram saying that, you know, people who are suicidal, it's like being in a burning building. Are you either going to just burn to death or are you going to jump out? Which is ironic
Right.
considering how she died. But
right.
but that, and if that's the analogy that she's using, then yeah, either you're gonna die from the inside or you're gonna try to get out of
Of
it.
course. Yeah, no, 100%. Are you comfortable speaking a little bit about the day of? Something you're comfortable with?
Yeah, sure.
So where were you when this all happened?
I was working. I was working in my basement. That's where I work. And things are going very well. I'm an orchestrator. So it requires a level of creativity that either you have or you don't have it. And that day I had it. And I even remember who I was working for because he called me a month and a half later and he said to me, "You didn't complete the job." And I thought he'd given it to somebody else. At that point, I said, "No, I'm waiting for you. You're going to complete this work for me." And things were going really, really well. And I was happy, you know, it was flowing and it was a nice piece of music and so on. And I went upstairs, got a snack, and I got a call from someone introducing themselves as a cop. "This is Remy Guerrari. Yeah. Your daughter's in Manhattan and she had a fall. She fell." I thought it was a prank call. I said, "Really?" Because I knew it. I'm going to backtrack a little bit. At that point, we were watching her 24 hours a day. 24 hours a day. And there's an educational institution in Crown Heights called JLI. You may have heard of it. Quite famous. And Simmons' wife, Shandy, Sim Jenkins' wife, works there as one of the higher-ups at JLI, and she gave Yocheved a volunteer job at JLI, which is literally a block and a half away from my house. And the idea was that Deanie, my wife, would walk her there every day. And then when she was done, 2 hours later, she'd pick her up and walk her back. But aside from that, we had eyes on her the entire time. She had no access to money. I'll explain to you in a second how she got around that, to buy a ticket to go to the vessel. And she had no access to any kind of privacy whatsoever. And she complained about it, but she knew why it was necessary, because this is part of a safety plan that was talked about in the hospital. And what had happened was that, and then within 30 seconds, I realized it was a real call, and I shouted out to Deanie, who was exercising at the time. I shouted, "Where's Yocheved?" We both knew, and I said to Levi, my son, I said, "Go call Yatsi Langzam, my brother-in-law, tell him to get over here." He's a very busy guy, but he picked himself up and he came to our house. And we found out later what had happened was that she came to work, and literally within a few minutes, she said to a coworker, "I left something at home. I'm going to go home for a few minutes and I'll be back in a few minutes." But she wasn't home in a few minutes. She went directly to Manhattan. She knew exactly what she was doing. And how did she get access to the vessel? She didn't have any money. I mean, she had money, but she didn't have access to her money. I had her money. So remember what? This is very close, like maybe a week before that she said to me, "Hey, do you mind just giving my credit card for a second? I want to buy a gift for a friend of mine," which she did all the time. She'd buy friends gifts. And I was sitting at my desk and she's sitting right there and she's like sitting on her laptop. And I said, "Sure, here's your credit card. Just give it right back to me." And she took the credit card and she gave it back to me. And then when I went into her email later on, what she had done was she'd created a draft email where she wrote down all the credit card information. So she was able to use that information to buy herself a $10 ticket in order to get into the vessel. Why she chose the vessel, I have no idea. Possibly because the access is just very, to do the deed is very easy there. And then my brother-in-law came over, and my wife and I, we went to Manhattan, and we were on the phone with the cop, and go to wherever the address of the vessel is in Hudson Yards, which, by the way, at that point, I don't know if you guys know about this area. I never heard of the area. I never heard of the vessel. I never heard of Hudson Yards. I never knew about any of this stuff. It's on 23rd and something. I don't know. He told you, telling me. And, okay, we're rushing. I was staying in the car. Our brother-in-law said, This is, we're not getting Manhattan for just to visit Yocheved because she fell. She's obviously over. My wife's in the back saying, tell him. 5 minutes before we got there, we get a call. Don't go there. Go to the precinct. 10th precinct. Go to the 10th precinct. And obviously we were expecting us because there was a cop guarding the entrance to the precinct. And there were a lot of other people trying to get in and get out, and no one was let in. But as soon as we came and said, this is a Remy Dini Garari, they made way for us. And someone immediately, such a blur now, I don't know how it happened, but immediately they knew to send us straight up to the top floor, the captain, I guess, the top guy in the department. He said, wait here. He was very chilled. He said, wait here. And let's wait. I think he made us wait for like 20 minutes and eventually took us into his conference room, and he told us, he had some questions for us and so on, but identifying marks. Yocheved had made it very, very easy for the cops to figure out who to call. She wrote Dad's number. She made it very easy for them. She had a note, made it very easy for them. So I remember my wife, I can remember that I was weeping quietly. Abdullah was downstairs. I immediately sent a message to him, telling him the news. We had to stay with the cops for a while, and I knew that he would take care of everything because, thank God we come from my wife comes from a large supportive family, and I knew that they would take other brothers members of Chevra Kedusha, so I knew that they would take care of it. And you asked me about that day. It's like that day is only felt 2 months later, because that day is like, what just happened? Where are we? Why are we doing this? And everybody did everything for us, and and we went back home, and my brothers-in-law took care of everything, and then the people came over, and close family, spent time with us, and the funeral was arranged for the next morning, and then we tried to go to bed, and this is the first time in 2 months that my wife is in my bedroom, because she would spend every night with Yocheved. And we're like there, and then we're tossing and turning, and then 4 a.m. in the morning is where we get the email. Yocheved had sent. That's the basic. Does that answer that question?
Yeah.
I think so.
So, yeah, that's really, I'm sorry, that's really like inconceivable.
It is inconceivable, even to me, till today.
Let me ask you on this note, a lot of times friends, family, relatives, right? When something like this happens, or any tragedy for that matter, maybe even not a tragedy, but they want to be there to help.
Yeah.
They don't know how to help.
Yeah.
They don't know what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, what's going too far, what's not, etc.
Yeah.
From someone who obviously is on far end of the spectrum, who could really, really talk to this, right? Is there any advice you could give to people that, how they should respond in these type of situations?
Just on a day-to-day life?
Yeah, how they could be of help.
The months after,
A month after this happens?
First of all, within the first week or two, primarily, how they could be of help, and what they should feel comfortable doing and what they definitely should not do, because again, people get very awkward in these type of situations. They don't know how to handle these situations.
Right.
So I'm just wondering what is someone who's been through something like this? What does someone want to hear?
Don't be afraid to talk about anything. I've lost a lot of friends because of what happened.
How so?
Close friends.
What?
I've lost a lot of close friends because of what happened, and I've made other friends.
How so? Why would you lose friends?
And if, I'll give you an example. I went to Florida a year ago, and I met up with a friend who I've known for, a long, long time. And took me aside, and he hadn't been in contact with me for a year. This is a close friend. And he said to me, I don't know what to say. I didn't have the words. I didn't know what to tell him. Please forgive me. I didn't know what to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
I said, that is fine, So in our case, thankfully, Dini comes from a large family, very supportive emotionally, otherwise very, very supportive. So leading up to it, I thought your initial question was leading up to it. So, that's what one brother would say, family is family. He's very Brooklyn, has Brooklyn kind of attitude, I'm talking about. And he was very good to her, and the family was very good to her, very accepting. So, for example, when she, started dressing in a different kind of way, whatever, it's only support and love. And So my message is, yeah, that's exactly it. Find a way to be supportive. Find a way to be loving.
Get over the awkwardness and say,
Get over
say
the
the
awkwardness.
things.
Get
Say
away-
the things.
Exactly. Get over the awkwardness.
What about just as far as, I don't know, food, there's so many day-to-day things, I guess.
We were taking care of. I mean,
Just step in.
People just stepped up.
Step in and ask how you can
Yeah.
be.
Yeah, ask. Yeah, what can I do to help?
I think sometimes people almost feel like when something's so raw like that, like they almost don't want to. Maybe there's like a fear of bringing it up because, like, oh, I'm triggering the person, which it sounds ridiculous to say.
A lot of
but-
times people ask stupid questions. You know that
Right.
comedy on YouTube, the guy that things you don't say about Shiva.
Right, literally,
yeah.
that's what I was
You
thinking.
know what I'm
by the
talking
way. Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking.
You know, so I'm like the Antichrist because I just lost my mother 6 weeks ago.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
said Shiva six weeks ago.
I'm sorry.
So people come up, and my mother was 87, 88. So you remember my mother?
Yeah.
Yeah. So people would come to Shiva. Hey, what's your mother? What happened? What happened? And I say, she got hit by a bus.
Was that you were just
No, he's joking.
No, I let it simmer for a little
Yeah.
bit.
Let them feel like an idiot.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like an idiot. Simmer. No, she was ill for a very short amount of time. Oh, okay.
That should.
Why would you ask such a stupid question?
right? It's not the.
You know,
It's not so. It's not what's important.
things
At
are
all.
not
Well, it's
important.
also not. Yeah, it's just not socially wise.
Yeah.
But I'm like, my wife hates when I do this. You know, like
Yeah.
that I create these. Like I bring it on. Okay, you want to be awkward? Bring it on.
Yeah.
I'll make you awkward. You know.
Yeah.
So
No, you make it clear that they're an idiot without telling them that.
exactly. Give it this. So the message is just, you know, what can I do for you? You know, I know you're going through a very hard time. Is there anything I can do for you? There's a couple that came over, you know, they live in a different city, whose son had passed away under similar circumstances. They just came and sat. You know, that's it. They didn't even tell us what happened with their own son. We found it later, you know. And we're not very good friends. They were just there for us. Just be there for people.
Just be present.
Just be present. You know?
Wow. So powerful.
I'm
Anything for Adina?
I'm still honestly processing a lot of this
Yeah.
conversation. I personally think I'm done. I mean, I can look at my
It's okay.
list of questions, but
I will say that when I walked into Shiva, I just said that I was there for the free food because there was so much food. I like went multiple times, and I would just walk in and be like, "All right, guys, it's dinner time. It's time to
you
eat."
have a very you have a wicked sense of humor. I could see.
Yeah,
By the way,
Is that something you also bonded with Yocheved? Just like snark,
That's snarky.
just
Yeah.
the snark, the wit back and forth.
I just wanted to say this. One of the ways that Adina proved and showed that she was not awkward was the fact that we still have this connection today and that she still, to this day, come over to us, Shavuot Shabbosim,
Really?
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. And it goes beyond that, I think. It goes, okay, you know, we're done. You know, that's it. No more connection with the Gararis. But no, she's maintained the connection and she comes over. We invite her. She comes over.
Have you entertained the possibility that she actually likes your company also, as well? You and your
no,
wife?
that'd be crazy.
That'd be crazy.
That would be insane.
I know she likes my wife.
Feenie's amazing.
I've heard.
So are
I've
you.
heard your wife is incredible.
Adina, you also super into music, like Yocheved was?
I love music. I'm not the same level as Yocheved
Oh, I
or
do remember.
Femi.
I do remember. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
The way we bonded was truthfully over making really inappropriate jokes.
Nice. Oh.
Sometimes about, like, for example, after her second attempt that I had spent all day with her, I called her out. We were having like a dinner date. She was in the hospital. I was at home. I think we were
FaceTime.
on it was FaceTime or whatever. And we were both eating dinner. And I said, I was like, why wouldn't you just give me all the good books? Like I brought it up with her because I was mad. And she was like, your point is taken. I totally get that. And then I said, when you die, I want my own personal note. Like I told her I wanted a suicide note. And she said to me, I can't give you one because there are other people that would expect their own personal one. And then she died a month later, and I had asked her for one specifically, and I'm still kind of annoyed. Like, why didn't I get my own? So look at the Instagram post, whatever.
That-
Wow.
I think that there's this idea of like getting past the awkwardness and like, like someone's pain doesn't define them. It's their personality and their humor and the beauty, and also a death in a family does not define a family.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Forget about a death. There's so
Anything.
much stigma. A kid going off the derech, whatever. We live in
Yeah.
a world where shidduchim, this, that. I mean, let's just call it what it is. There's
Yeah.
so much stigma. The family's not perfect. So I think at this point, like, there's so much, let's just call it so much dysfunction going around from a mental health standpoint that it's kind of a little bit less stigma than it was, let's say, when we were growing up. Still, I'm sure it exists, you know?
Yeah.
One random thing. I heard that, I heard through the grapevines. Zach, you want to go? You want to ask? Ask away.
It's fine.
I heard through the grapevines that you are a composer. You've composed songs, and they used to. Not true?
Not true.
Did you ever have any affiliation to
Miami Boys
creating
Choir.
songs for
To what?
Miami?
Miami Boys Choir.
I used to work for Humble Begun years ago.
Okay, there's something we need to know
Yeah, go
because
ahead.
there's this very specific Miami Boys Choir song that got very famous.
I wrote the orchestration for that concert.
Oh, you did?
That concert.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Actually, after it went viral, I checked on my computer if it was on my computer, and I saw that exact
Do you
arrangement.
realize that song has
Time
been
out.
listened by every non-Jew in the world right now? It's like the number.
Just understand. I
What does that mean? The orchestration? It was the specific video that went viral. That
That
was your
live
orchestration?
concert.
the music used at that concert, they were reading my notes.
You literally wrote the
Literally
music
wrote the music.
notation.
Notation. It wasn't my music. It wasn't my composition. The
No, it's Joachim Wolfgang wrote it.
Complete Begun, but it's Shaul Lamb wrote the arrangement. But the actual guy that wrote the music for the musicians to play.
So you had a hand in. This is crazy. What was your thoughts when that was coming out? You're like, yeah, that's me. That was my stuff.
Great. Hey, if it happens, it's not my stuff because it's called music copying. It's taking a score that someone else had written and putting it on a computer and dividing it up for the instruments.
Okay, sure.
That was my job. So it's more of like a tech kind of job. But it was funny. I just checked to see if I was still involved because at a certain point we broke ways, Mel and I. I worked for him for over 10 years.
Oh, so you did a lot of work for Miami.
Did a lot of work for him.
Is all of your musical work and orchestration in the From music world?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So nothing. You haven't done any work with Dylan yet. Would you work with Dylan if he wanted to? Would you orchestrate for his show?
Well, he doesn't have doesn't do orchestral stuff. I'm into big orchestra stuff.
That's true.
So would I? Could I? Sure. I mean, well, why not? You know.
Bob, if you're listening.
Yeah, but
Bob.
I mean,
Robert.
produce. You know. Yeah, look, I mean, I found myself a niche. I mean, Jewish music is very busy today. You know, there's a lot of things going on.
There's a lot, yeah.
A lot of movement, a lot of change, a lot of good stuff, a lot of bad stuff, just like in the pop world.
Mm-hmm.
Should put him in touch with Rafi. That would be.
I really enjoyed that. I watched that.
Oh, you like that?
Yeah, you
I
watched
really
Rob
enjoyed
Rafi.
it.
Rafi's also very
A
talented.
couple of things that he said that was just really touched me.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I really, really want to thank you, Adina, and you, Avrami, really, for coming over. I did do a bunch of research. I looked over your Instagram, her Instagram, and I could just say, truly, she really, really seemed like just a really special neshama. Like, I mean
Thank
it.
you.
Like, just beauty. Like, I was looking at the pictures of her that you shared. Just that pureness in her eyes, honestly. So
She was.
it's, unspeakable tragedy. And I really applaud you for going out there, putting yourself out there and talking about it. So many people would just curl up in a ball and just say, I don't want to have anything to do with this. I don't want to talk about this. So it's unbelievable to go out there and, speak openly, candidly, with no shame, just say it how it is and make so much change in the community. So it's really,
Spreading
really
a little
beautiful.
light.
Appreciate it.
Tremendous.
A little light. Thanks,
And,
thanks for having me. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
of course.
I
Thank
would
you,
hope I
everybody.
can come for a Shabbat meal.
Please do.
Yeah.
I would
It's a
love
good time.
that.
It's a good time.
And
Okay,
Adina,
I'm
you're
looking
going to make sure
forward-
to be there, right?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Should we tell you there's a great Shabbos in my house?
We're making a lot of friends from this podcast. Like, everyone who comes on, there's like Leah was here last week, Leah Forster,
All right.
and she's like, "You guys, can you guys come to our show?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course." And then Ben Lerner was here with
Yeah.
us. He's like, "We have a show. We're going like every person
We're just
has like,
collecting free
I
shows
was about
and
to say.
Shabbat
free
meals.
Shabbos meals, man."
Yeah, that's why we do it. That's why we
Yeah.
do it.
Well, you live in my neighborhood, so why not? you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Why not? Guys,
Okay.
thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for watching.
you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Adina. All right, take
Okay.
care, guys. Bye.
Take care.
All right.